Sitting on the line right now is Odyssey NFL insider Ross Tucker. Insider calls are brought to you by Hellman's Real Mayonnaise. Mayo Game Day. Be delicious. Ross Tucker, what's up?
What up? How are you guys doing?
Doing good. Now, you're going to be heading our way pretty soon, right? Are you already here?
No, the opposite.
It's a road game. It's a road game, right? The game after that. I'm sorry, I mixed up the I mixed up the weeks. All right, so you're heading to Arizona. We won't be seeing you then. Not that we were going to anyway.
So I have a question.
Right.
I would think that as a WEEI host, like knowing where the NFL team's game that weekend is should be. Although it's only Tuesday, you probably by Thursday would have figured it out.
I probably wouldn't have, honestly. And the next game's an away game, too, so I was wrong in pretty much every single part of that. Either way, Ross, wherever you're going to be, you're going to be calling the games for a team that I'm concerned maybe checking out, having a late bye week this late into the season, and then knowing that these last four games don't really matter in terms of competing for anything. They've already been eliminated from the playoffs. You played in the league for several years. How do you stay focused? How do you not let this season or this last month of the season kind of get away and stay engaged?
Well, so two things. First of all, I'm very fired up to be doing the Patriots game because I'm looking forward to meeting Drake May, and I'll be honest, I am glad it's in Arizona and not in Foxborough this time of year, although the Patriots do have pretty stellar press box food. Like, I'll miss the chowder and the cookies as big as my head. It's a good question, though. It really is, because I was in that situation at least 2 years of my career, maybe 3 actually, but definitely 2 years of my career. I was starting games late in the season that were quote-unquote meaningless games. Now, what made those games interesting, especially interesting, Christian, is in both cases, we kind of knew the head coach was getting fired, or we knew there was a decent chance. So guys take that, I've noticed, one of two ways. You know, like there were guys with the Cowboys in 2002 that knew Dave Campo was getting fired. They skipped curfew before the last game. They're like, this guy's getting fired anyway, and they skipped curfew. See, I was always the opposite, and maybe it's because I had already gotten cut once, but I knew exactly what a potential new head coach or the changes that come as a result of a disappointing season, I knew exactly what that meant, right? So if anything, I took my preparation and I took everything to the next level because I was thinking one of two things. Either there's going to be a lot of change, so I either need to play well enough that they keep me after they make the change, that I'm not part of the change, or if there is change and I am part of the change, I better play well enough on tape so that somebody else picks me up. So that was the mindset I had, and I think a lot of the guys that have been around or guys that are, I guess, more aware or smarter about the realities of pro football, that's how they'll handle it. There will be some guys that maybe aren't as locked in. You know, maybe they're not as focused as they should be. And I think that's on Gerard Mayo and the veteran players to get those guys locked in, to get them to understand why it matters, what they're trying to build, why they're trying to win these games, even though Andy wants them to lose.
That is true. And they've lost a lot, so they are in the top 3 picks in the draft. And that's the reason there have been reports as recently as today that Robert Kraft, if he decides that he made a mistake with Gerard Mayo, would rectify the situation. Do you think the Patriots should consider moving on from Gerard Mayo after just one season?
I do not. I'm a little bit surprised that they are even considering it. You know, I talk to you guys every week, but that's not the same as, you know, watching every single Gerard Mayo press conference or every snap from every game. Mm-hmm. You know, obviously I watched every snap from the Colts game, and I came away on some level impressed with how the Patriots were playing. And you look at them, man, guys, I mean, you look at their offensive line, how many of those guys would start for other teams? You know, I mean, I can tell you right now, none of those guys, maybe Onwenu would start for like the Eagles, At receiver, I mean, you look at the Patriots offense, I'm not sure if any of those guys would start for some of the better teams in the NFL. And I've been very disappointed with how they played on the defensive side of the ball. I think that's the question. That's the question I would have if I was Mr. Kraft for Mayo, is like, what happened on defense? You know, because that's the side of the ball where I think they expected them to play better.
We're talking to Odyssey NFL insider Ross Tucker. He's brought to you by Hellman's Real Mayonnaise. Ross, we got numbers back this week that the Patriots are once again bottom of the barrel when it comes to pass blocking. The actual stats went right over my head, but they were down at the bottom of the league. If you were to rebuild an offensive line from the studs up, what's the first position that you take on? Does it matter even? And how much does improving one guy on the line sort of help the remaining four?
Really, really good questions. These are smarter questions than probably you even realize.
Yeah.
Number one, I would tell you that I don't think there's a difference really these days between left tackle and right tackle. You know, so many of the best rushers rush over the right tackle that the whole blind side and this guy's a left tackle. You better have a really good player at both spots, and in particular, right tackle. I mean, you know, either guy you can help with one-on-ones. You can give them chip help or whatever, slide to them, but you want to have at least one tackle that you feel really good about, so you can slide and help the other guy. I do think tackle is more important than center or guard. I do. I think that they're going to be isolated more often one-on-one, whereas the interior trio, more often, it'll be 3-on-2. Although defenses are doing a much better job now of having 5 guys on the line and forcing the O-line to go big on big, 5-on-5. They're much better at that than they were when I was playing. But your second question was super important, which is having a really good – let's say you got Trent Williams to be the left tackle for the Patriots next year, whoever you think the best tackle is in the NFL or the best in the draft. It doesn't really do that much to the other guys. You know what I mean? Like, what I've always said is it's most important that you don't have anybody bad than it is that you have somebody really good. I'd rather have 5 guys on a scale of 1 to 10. I'd rather have 5 5s than have 2 9s and 3 2s. Hopefully I'm making sense.
Definitely.
There is something.
These are the kind of numbers I can follow, Russ. Like, this is right. I get that.
Yeah, but there is something to be said for you're only as good as your weakest link. Now, I do think on an offensive line, you can probably protect one guy. You can scheme around one guy and try to not put him in bad positions, whether that's a center or a guard or even a tackle. Once you have more than one guy who's a problem, then you have a major, major problem, because you can't really schematically protect more than one guy all that effectively. So I understand teams that draft guys super high or pay a guy a ton of money, and there is some value if it's like a lockdown pass pro tackle that you can slide the protection away from him a lot. But what really matters is you can't have multiple below average guys out there.
Ross, what started as a story that I think most people thought was just sort of a PR stunt by somebody or something we could laugh off has seemingly gotten serious. Bill Belichick, North Carolina, The Athletic, within the last hour said Bill Belichick is considering an offer to become the next head coach at UNC. What do you make of this whole thing, and do you think Bill Belichick would and could be a good college football coach?
Well, so based on my experience playing college football, which is not the current era, and based on my experience playing for Coach Belichick, which was, almost 20 years ago, he would be probably by far the worst college head coach I could ever imagine. The idea of the guy that I was around recruiting or like going into the living room of a 17-year-old. I want this to happen so bad I can taste it. I mean, if they do it, they got to have cameras everywhere. I mean, the guy, when I was in New England, was like 100% negative reinforcement.
Yep.
I would love to just see how quickly those kids go into the transfer portal. I mean, look, I guess college football has changed now, and there's basically going to be a salary cap of like $20 million. And the deal is the deal, and maybe that's something that Belichick can wrap his head around, and maybe he can hire some really good recruiters. But, you know, one of the reasons why Chip Kelly never had as much success when he went back to college to UCLA is he doesn't like recruiting. You know, he doesn't like doing it. He doesn't like the recruiting or the donors or all the stuff. You know, college, right or wrong, is for the head coach, it's a lot less about the football X's and O's and a lot more about your personality and your charisma and your ability to convince adults to give you money and your ability to convince young people and their parents that you're the right person to watch over them and to put them in the best position. Now, I heard what he said on McAfee, and I think that's the right way to say it. The right way to sell it is it'd be an NFL program at the college level, and you know you're hoping people buy that pitch, and that's what you're selling. But man, like I just can't imagine him recruiting. I just can't imagine him, you know, kissing butt, right? Like that's the opposite of what Bill was as an NFL head coach. The polar opposite.
Yeah, it is very hard to imagine. It's hard to envision, but I think it's happening. I mean, it seems like they're very far along in this process. Ross Tucker, great to talk with you as always. We will enjoy your call on the Patriots and the Cardinals in Arizona. Breaking news: the game's in Arizona, and also next week against Buffalo and Buffalo as well. Thanks so much for the time this week.
All right, see you guys. Can't wait.
All right, that is Ross Tucker. Insider Calls brought to you by Hellman's Real Mayonnaise. You can purchase Hellman's at your local Walmart, Kroger, or grocery store to add extra deliciousness and creamy flavor to your game day dishes this football season.